Here, straight out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What's the number one way we limit ourselves? I can't do it. I can't afford it. Mindset, I don't know. Right out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I can't afford it. I can't do it. I don't know how. The mind limits us tremendously. And so, of course, instead of saying I can't afford it, say, how can I afford it? Instead of saying I can't do it, say, how can I do it? And that's probably one of the key things for me out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad was just that. If I can get this under control, holy mackerel, then I really am limitless. But oftentimes I get limited in my mind. So I just want to share a couple stories about how that's happened. And kind of, I'm going to back up 1 second, though. I want to say one other thing. From the stories I want to tell, there's life lessons that happen. And every time there's action, let me do this. How many people are familiar with this? How many people have ever seen this before? Do have. How many have not? How many don't know? Let me ask again. How many people are familiar with this? Show of hands, please. How many are not? Perfect, thank you. Okay, so be, do, have is just a formula that's been used in many occasions. Be is you're being, who you are, your being. Doing, of course, is you doing, taking action, and having is things that you have. Typically what people say is, I want to do this so that I can have this. Okay, I want to go do the seminar so that I can have more money. I want to do whatever, yell out something. Do what? Work out. I want to work out because I want to have a fit body. Okay? But now what we found is actually that's not quite how it works. Really what happens is the doing is the most important piece. Because when you do something, that's what I'm going to be talking about a little bit, when you go out and you do something, especially if it's something that stretches you, like George was talking about hanging off a cliff, holy moly. But when you do something, that's where real growth and change can happen. So if you do something that stretches you, something that you're afraid of, something that gets butterflies in your stomach, and you do it, that actually can change who you are. That can transform. And so instead of, I'm going to do this to have this, the purpose of doing isn't really to have. The purpose of doing is to change your being, change who you are, transform who you are so that you can have more. As your being grows and grows, your what we call havingness grows and grows. So the purpose of doing is not to have. The purpose of doing is to change your being so that you can have. Does that make sense? Yes, okay. And in neuroscience, they found that they talk about that for every action, there's feedback. Okay, so if you touch a hot stove, the feedback is you burned your finger. Okay, if you smile at somebody and they smile back, that's feedback. If you launch a product and nobody buys it, that's feedback. If you put a property on the market and you get no offers, that's feedback. If you get 15 offers, that's other feedback. The feedback actually in the whole process of also be, do, have, the whole process in doing, feedback is actually the most important part of it, but we don't pay attention to it. Oftentimes we're so busy doing that we don't really look at the consequences, because once you see the feedback, then you can act off of the feedback. Does that make sense? But whether it's golf, whether it's doing in your business, whether it's doing investing, you have to actually get out there and do something to get the feedback. You have to actually do something in order to get the life lessons. There's a lot of life lessons, And all the life lessons I get have to come from me doing. I mean, real learning, real knowledge, in my opinion, doesn't come out of a book. You can get an aha moment from a book, but then if you don't take action, that aha moment's going to kind of dissipate. And the more I can encourage even if somebody came to me and said, you know, I'm young this morning, I'm very young, what should I do? I said, do something. Just do something. It's like, what are they called? Tax liens. You familiar with tax liens? You can pay, if somebody hasn't paid their property taxes, you can pay their property taxes, and eventually if the people never pay, you can actually get their property for the cost of the property taxes. So Robert and I had heard about this, and so we actually bought the book, Tax Lien Certificates, bought the book, we both read the book. We went down to a town in southern Arizona called Bisbee, Arizona, and we took $1,000 and we bought $1,000 worth of tax lien certificates. We wanted to find out how it works and what does it do and and that's how we learn. Instead of just reading about it, we got to go do it, you got to go touch it, you got to go feel it. So we went down there, put $1,000 in. We did have one property. Actually, we knew if we paid the property taxes, we could get the property. Except he was a friend of ours, and we didn't think that was a good idea, so we didn't do it. But we learned the process. We found out it's not really our thing. We don't really want to do that. But we did it we had to go do it to find out that we didn't want to do it. You know, people would talk about gold and silver. What should I buy gold and silver? Should I buy gold and silver? Just go buy a few silver coins and see what you think. Because once you buy it, when I first bought my silver coin, oh man, I'm on the computer going, what's it doing today? What's it do? Is it up? Is it down? What's it doing? Da, 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 da. But because you actually took the action, the learning gets much greater. Does that make sense? Okay. So my final thought is that I don't know how people limit themselves more than this right here. And I think the way out of limitation is just go do something. You know, when people talk about, I'm very confused, well, the way out of confusion is go do something. The way out of fear is go do something. It seems to be a really good solution. And it could be baby steps when I'm learning something new. Right now, I'm learning about tree farms because I have a property in South Carolina, and it'd be good to have an investment down there. I love trees. And now I'm learning if you buy a tree farm or timberland, and how you actually cull them. Actually, trees actually eat each other if they don't they compete for sunlight. So you have to actually cut them down, and timber's very high demand right now. So I'm learning about it. I've got a mentor, and he's taking me to all these tree farms around South Carolina, and we'll buy a property probably this year. Again, but I had to get out there and do it. I had to go see the property. I had to go touch it. I had to go feel it. I had to go talk to people who knew what they were doing because I had no idea. So